So, season 4 of Better Call Saul picks up as per previous seasons, just where the last one left off. You know, as stupid as this sounds, but it's literally taken me just over 3 seasons to realise the black and white scenes that sometimes open Better Call Saul are of his life post Breaking Bad. For some reason, aside from the one in the very first episode where he watches tapes of his old adverts, strangely, I assumed these were from life way back in Jimmy's life before he was a lawyer, and I was curious to see how this was going to be incorporated into his swindler days. Then in this season, where Jimmy is paranoid that his driving license will be exposed as a fake and a taxi driver might be out to get him, that's when I realised, oh, this is all after Breaking Bad. And then I had to recontextualise all of the black and white scenes in my head. Anyway, my brain fart aside, Chuck is now dead. And the 4th season of Better Call Saul essentially deals with the fallout of that, or to be more precise, the lack of fallout, with Jimmy being quite nonchalant, relatively speaking, about his brother's death. This season reminds me quite a bit of Breaking Bad's 4th season. Throughout that season, there was a weird feeling. It was like you were not quite sure what to make of things, not quite sure what's going on. What's with the pensive mood to the season? Why are Mike and Gus acting this way towards Jesse? Are they grooming him so that he will turn against Walter and be okay with his death? And after you start to get these notions and suspicions in your head, the show starts to confirm them without telling you as much outright. Likewise, in this season, people act weird. Jimmy most notably, but there's also Kim, who's clearly got unspoken things going on in her head. Even Howard, Mr. Perfect, is suffering with insomnia. But it's Jimmy who you're constantly thinking about. Why did he do this? Why is he acting this way? Is this his way of processing grief? Does he actually not care about his brother? Why did he turn down the job offer? Why was he crying and saying no repeatedly in the car? Lots of interesting questions, some of which I actually hope to tackle in future videos. But it's a season full of thought-provoking character moments that make you ponder, where answers are not immediately delivered to you. I feel like there's a noticeable step up from the character complexity from previous seasons, or at the very least, a drop in exposition, which allows us to think about what we're watching and come to our own suggestions and conclusions as to what is going on. It's not always clear what is happening. It's almost as if entire frames of characters explaining their motivations and reactions have been cut out, leaving only the gestures and reaction shots themselves, and no real big speeches or dramatic arguments to help us along the way. And Better Call Saul can afford to get all cerebral with its principal cast of lawyers, as if it's action and drama you're looking for, that is delivered in the Mike, Nacho, Hector and Gus storyline, which has been upped in intensity. It's almost like the showrunners know they can be a little vague with the likes of Jimmy, because much of the crash bang wallop of the show is dedicated to the drug and cartel storylines. I said in my review of season 1 that I was hoping the show wouldn't take away from Jimmy's story at the expense of the drug dealers and kingpins. But I'd be lying if I said all the stuff with Hector and Gus and that world wasn't really interesting. And it feels like the show is much more comfortable in its handling of the Jimmy storyline and the Mike storyline now that the two feel separate and whole, rather than try and constantly mitigate the two and have Mike pop up in Jimmy's life here and there just to justify his existence in the show. The storylines are interesting and in full swing. The show stands on its own 2 feet, as anyone who's gotten as far as season 4 will already know, and it seems to avoid the usual issues of prequels, where you don't feel a sense of danger for established characters because you know how they end up. And it seems to do this by simply not putting characters who live to Breaking Bad in life-threatening situations, instead relegating this to new characters. Like, there's one part where, for a split second, I was sure Nacho was a dead man after being suddenly shot, and I know I would not have felt that level of tension if they did this with a character who I know for sure will make it to the end. Sticking with the show as a prequel, it also takes time to go into how some of the things established in Breaking Bad came to be, like where exactly Gus got Gale from, and also that Bond villain-esque underground meth lab, the construction of which actually forms a big part of this season's story. The more I see of Gus, the more I come to find that Walter White was just another cog in the machine that is Gus's big master plan to expand his empire. And it's amusing to think just how much of a nuisance this chemistry teacher must have been for Fring. Everything was solid in this season, I felt. There's good, genuine drama with courts and cases. There's the gangsters and their storylines. The reaction to Chuck's passing was intriguing. Jimmy's foray into work at a cell phone store while he's suspended from being a lawyer, and his combined creativity and boredom slipping him into his old ways. And slipping Jimmy and his shenanigans, like with the 50 or so phones on the desk, was fun to watch. He's not the only character of note either. Kim, for example, is almost as interesting as Jimmy is in this season. I feel like there's more going on in this season, at a deeper level I mean. The show flings more ingredients into the mix as it goes, like a hypocritical justice system which is begging to be swindled in order for you to win your case. There's resentment, there's hurt, there's moral ambiguity. The characters are very strong, and the interplay more fascinating as a result. So what did you think of Better Call Saul Season 4? Let me know in the comments below. And before we finish, I just want to thank my patrons, Andre Millington, Nicholas Curtis and Dirk K, and also my channel members, the new on Gorm24, Rikers and Michael Awatwi. Thanks for watching.